in his 7th season from Slovenia, number 77, Luka Doncic! Thank you, Luka.
Despite the best efforts of Braun and the rest of the team to lift his spirits, it was clear that he was deeply affected, visibly crushed even. Their attempts at cheering him up were heartfelt, filled with camaraderie and support, but his demeanor remained subdued and introspective. However, the moment he stepped onto the court, everything changed in an instant. The weight that had seemingly burdened him disappeared as if it had never existed, replaced by a focused, almost cold intensity. His body language transformed. He carried himself with confidence and purpose. Gone was the player who had appeared downcast just minutes earlier. Now, he looked like a man on a mission. What followed was a ruthless performance as he turned that emotional energy into fuel, channeling it into every move, every play. In a stunning display of skill and dominance, he began dismantling his former teammates with relentless precision, making it clear that his emotions had not weakened him, they had sharpened him. His gameplay was calculated and merciless, as though he had something to prove not just to them but to himself. It wasn't personal, but it was absolutely deliberate. The audience watched in awe as he elevated the entire pace of the game, dictating the rhythm and asserting control. Each point he scored seemed like a statement, not of bitterness, but of growth, strength, and determination. Then, something unexpected happened. As he continued his streak, the crowd suddenly erupted into a deafening chant, "Fire Nico! Fire Nico!" It caught everyone off guard, even Nico himself. It started as a murmur, just a handful of fans raising their voices, but it built with a surprising intensity until the entire arena seemed to be vibrating with the energy of that chant. There was something raw and primal in the way the crowd connected with his performance. It was as if they recognized not just the athleticism or the stats, but the emotional depth behind every move, the pain, the redemption, the unspoken story playing out in real time. The chant wasn't just about admiration. It was about witnessing someone reclaim their power in the most public high-stakes way imaginable. Fire Nico became more than just support. It was a war cry, a rally behind a player who had turned heartache into dominance. The sudden outburst of support visibly shook the arena. Even his former teammates, mid-play, seemed affected. You could see it in their eyes, the mix of surprise, respect, and maybe even regret. Some of them had underestimated him. Others had perhaps taken his silence for defeat. But now, all of them had to face the reality that Nico was not only back, he was evolving in front of their eyes. The fire inside him, once dimmed by personal turmoil, had reignited into something fierce and unstoppable. He didn't smile or acknowledge the crowd right away. He stayed locked in, focused, determined. But there was a different kind of confidence in the way he moved now, an ease to his motion that suggested he was no longer just fighting against something. He was playing for something. Each time the chant grew louder, he seemed to push even harder. The game became more than competition. It became a spectacle, a moment of transformation. The synergy between Nico and the crowd built a kind of rhythm, and even those who hadn't followed his story before could feel that this was special. He wasn't just winning a game, he was telling a story, and every pass, every shot, every defensive stance was a sentence in that story. It was raw, electrifying, and deeply human.
Well, Doncic has it, and again, every time he touches it, early on at least, all the energy looking towards number 77. The Don underneath trying to deliver some magic, and he does just that. Doncic, who now wears those colors, and the number 77 on his back, will get it right back. Luka, three, got it, the Don!
Despite Braun and the rest of the team doing everything they could to lift his spirits, cracking jokes, slapping him on the back, pulling him into playful conversations, it was impossible to miss that Nico was carrying something heavy, something that dimmed the usual fire in his eyes. He seemed crushed, weighed down by emotions too complex for words, and the weight of his past with his former team seemed to hang over him like a thick, silent fog. Even surrounded by supportive teammates and the buzz of the arena, Nico looked isolated, wrapped in his own thoughts. But then something remarkable happened. The moment he stepped onto the court, the heaviness that had clouded his expression seemed to vanish completely. It was like a switch had been flipped. He wasn't sluggish or distracted. He was locked in, sharp and coldly focused. It was as if every ounce of pain or regret had been transmuted into fuel. With laser precision and relentless energy, he began what could only be described as a ruthless dismantling of his former teammates. His movements were decisive, his reads were perfect, and each drive to the basket had the weight of something personal behind it. This wasn't just about points or wins. This was about reclaiming something. The stadium quickly caught onto the shift in energy. At first there were murmurs, fans exchanging glances, reacting to his blistering pace and unrelenting attack. And then, almost out of nowhere, the crowd ignited with a spontaneous, thunderous chant, "Fire Nico! Fire Nico!" It was unexpected, electric and raw. The chant surged through the stands like a wave of adrenaline, growing louder with each echo. What started as a small group of passionate fans quickly turned into a chorus that filled the entire arena. The chant wasn't just celebratory, it was reverent. It acknowledged not just Nico's performance but his journey. It was as if the crowd, knowingly or not, recognized the catharsis playing out on the hardwood. Nico, who had arrived with visible emotional weight, was now rewriting his narrative in real time, play by play. And the people were with him. They weren't just spectators anymore. They were participants in the moment, cheering not just for his skills, but for his transformation. The fire in his name became a metaphor for his intensity, his comeback, and the uncontainable emotion that charged every pass, every rebound, every shot. Even as the chant surged around him, Nico didn't acknowledge it directly. He didn't wave to the stands or pump his fists. He remained stoic, immersed in the game, channeling every ounce of energy into his craft. There was something almost surgical in the way he picked apart defenses, set up plays, and attacked the rim. Yet for all his apparent detachment, there was no denying that he heard them, that somewhere deep inside those chants were fueling him. His face might not have shown it, but his play did. There was a ferocity in his eyes that hadn't been there before, and a rhythm to his game that only comes when emotion and skill align perfectly. The chant didn't die down. It continued relentlessly, a soundtrack to his dominance. And, as the minutes passed and Nico kept delivering, more points, more clutch moments, more silencing of his doubters, the crowd's energy only grew. But Nico, despite the hero's welcome, wasn't basking in it. During breaks in play, while his teammates hydrated, laughed, or acknowledged the crowd, Nico often withdrew. He didn't sit on the bench for long. Instead, he'd drift toward the tunnel just out of sight, partially hidden in shadow. It wasn't a dramatic exit, just a quiet one, as if he needed to step back from the heat of the spotlight, to breathe and recalibrate. There, near the tunnel, he found a kind of solitude, even as the crowd kept chanting his name. Maybe it was a way to stay centered, to remind himself that while the performance was public, the journey, the pain, the healing, was still deeply personal. He wasn't running from the crowd. He was just choosing when and how to face it. Each time he returned to the court, it was with renewed intensity. His time near the tunnel wasn't an escape, it was a reset. And with each return, his play became even more inspired, as if the space had allowed him to tap into something deeper. The story of the game stopped being about scores or statistics. It became about one man facing the remnants of his past and transforming them into something undeniable, something unshakable. His former teammates couldn't stop him, not because they lacked skill or desire, but because Nico had elevated to a different level entirely, a mental and emotional zone where nothing else existed but the game, the ball, and the fire within. The rhythm of the match pulsed with the beat of the crowd's chant, and Fire Nico became more than noise. It was a mantra. It became the spine of the night, echoing off every play, coloring every highlight. And though Nico never publicly acknowledged it, after a brief pause in the rhythm of the evening, it was finally AD's turn to take center stage. As the music played on, he moved towards Donush, who was standing confidently at the top, awaiting his partner. The crowd's energy heightened with anticipation, knowing that this was going to be a moment to remember. Donush, poised and ready, extended a hand toward AD, a gesture that marked the beginning of their dance. Their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them before they took their first step together. AD's movements were fluid, a testament to his confidence and experience, but it was clear that there was a certain electricity in the air as he and Donush synchronized their steps. Each gesture seemed perfectly timed, as if they had rehearsed this moment for years. The way their bodies aligned was almost mesmerizing, drawing the attention of everyone around them. The intensity of their performance was palpable, and the crowd could do nothing but watch in awe. Up top, the spotlight illuminated them both, casting a soft glow that accentuated the elegance of their movements. The music swelled, building to a crescendo as they moved with grace and precision, their connection undeniable. The steps they took together spoke volumes, telling a story that only those watching could truly understand. There was something magical about the way AD and Donush danced, something beyond just the choreography. It was a moment of pure chemistry, where time seemed to slow down and the world around them faded into the background. As the music began to wind down, their movements slowed, and the energy of the crowd built towards a climax. AD and Donush shared a knowing smile, acknowledging the unspoken bond they had created in those fleeting moments. The dance came to a close with one final, flawless step, and the crowd erupted into applause. It was a performance that would be remembered, a perfect blend of artistry, skill, and connection that had captivated everyone in the room. Luka had always been someone who sought to make an impact, to leave a lasting impression wherever he went. He wasn't one to blend into the background or follow the crowd. Rather, he was always looking for a way to stand out and do something bold. Today, however, he felt the weight of his ambition more than ever. He had been waiting for the right moment to make his statement, and now it seemed that moment had arrived. The crowd around him buzzed with energy, the air thick with excitement as the event reached its peak. Luka knew this was the time. A chance to step forward, seize the spotlight, and announce to the world that he was here to be noticed, here to be remembered. As the music pulsed through the space and people danced in carefree abandon, Luka stood still for a moment, surveying the scene. Everything felt larger than life, and he could feel his heart racing in anticipation of what was to come. It wasn't just about showing off. For Luka, it was about proving something to himself and perhaps to others who had doubted him. He had always been the underdog, the one people underestimated, and now he was ready to flip that script. He wanted everyone to know that he was not to be overlooked, not any longer. With a deep breath, he made his way toward the center of the crowd. His gaze fixed firmly ahead. The moment he stepped into the spotlight, a hush seemed to fall over the room, as if the very air had shifted. The attention was now on him. Luka could feel the weight of the eyes upon him, but instead of faltering, he drew strength from it. He was ready. He had been working toward this moment for too long to back down now. Every step he took was measured, purposeful, as if he were walking into the eye of a storm with a calm resolve. Luka moved with purpose, his movements deliberate and confident. The rhythm of the music seemed to surge within him, guiding him as he made his presence known in a way that was impossible to ignore. He wasn't just dancing, he was performing, putting every ounce of his energy and passion into each step, each gesture. It was as though he was telling a story through his body, one that had been years in the making.
Luka has scored or assisted on 11 of the 18. Make it! 14 of 21!